Okay, so it is time for my end of week vlog for week 4 in March 2020. Today is the 29th of March, and including this video, your next 3 videos, next 3 days, there's going to be a lot of things coming through. So I've been working incredibly hard at all of that and getting everything ready. Today we have the week 4 of March end of week video, which we'll get to in just a moment. Then tomorrow we have my April TBR video coming out, and just wait for that one. Just wait, pack your snacks, it's going to be a long video. And then on Tuesday, the 31st of March, I will be doing my monthly wrap up, and I've certainly read the most books this month that I have since I've begun my channel, so I'm very, very excited to share in all of that with you, with the books I loved and the books I didn't love. But this is not those videos. This is the end of week wrap up. So what have I been reading since you guys last checked in with me, which was Wednesday, for my mid-week review? Well, we're going to pause really quickly, and when we come back, I'll discuss all of that with you. So just a moment. Hold on, we'll be right back. Okay, so starting off with Mistborn's The Well of Ascension. Now, if you didn't already know this, I have not only read this book, but I've done 2 reviews for this book. It nearly ended up being 3, but I decided not to release my first thoughts once I'd just finished reading this. So the way I've done the review for this book, and you can check that out in my playlist, is that I did one video entitled Things I Loved About Mistborn's The Well of Ascension, and then I did a second video, Things I Didn't Love About Mistborn's The Well of Ascension. But regardless of all that, this is an amazing book, and it did receive 5 stars from me. I was really happy to get back into this world, and I had a rough idea, well, now that I consider the day I've had today in preparation for tomorrow, I had a rough idea around the 1st or 2nd of March as to what my TBR was going to be for April. And let me tell you, book 3 in the Mistborn series, I almost said The Well of Ascension, which is this book, The Hero of Ages, was not going to be on that TBR. I was actually going to cut it from the April TBR and from the May TBR and read the 3rd book in the series in June, because I have all these plans for April and May, and I just didn't think that I was going to be able to fit it in, and that I wouldn't mind taking a couple of months off before coming back to conclude the Vin story for Mistborn. However, by the time I got to the end of this book, there was just no way that was happening, and so let me assure you that Mistborn's 3rd book in the series, The Hero of Ages, is definitely going to be on my April TBR, and we'll talk about that and how all that's going to work in tomorrow's video. But this book, 5 stars, it was a really good book. This book is, I wouldn't necessarily call it character-driven, because there is a driving plot to this book, unlike another one that I read this month that was pretty much 95% character-driven. But this book is not as action-packed as the first one. It's much more political, but there is a ton of character growth that occurs throughout this book. There is also a mystery that is in this book as well, which is a lot of fun. You can sort of, well, I'm going to say quote-unquote, you can play along with the mystery in this book, but there are a lot of wonderful moments that occur in this book for so many characters, and the character growth is just absolutely amazing. This is not to say that this book is battle-less or actionless, because there are battles and there is a lot of action that goes on in this book. It's just comparatively to book number 1, there's not as much action there. But yeah, it's still emotionally provoking, and still, even after reading the 2nd book, Mistborn is my favourite series that I have read throughout my whole life, just because of everything about it, the plot, the characters, the world building, the magic systems, the emotions it evokes out of me. It's just an amazing read. So I really look forward to reading Hero of Ages in April, but Mistborn's The Well of Ascension, just like its predecessor, Mistborn The Final Empire, has also received 5 stars. excuse me, the second book I read this week, and this week, the end of this week might as well be referred to continuing on with series end of week, because this is book 2 in the Mistborn series, and this, aside from the cover that I don't like, but we're going to let that go because I've griped about that way too much, is the second book in the Vampire Academy series. So I finished this book, I think I finished it yesterday or the day before. I think actually it was the day before. And I did a review for this book yesterday, so you can check that out in my reviews playlist. So this is the second book in the Vampire Academy series. We're continuing to follow Rose and her friends, who are, well, vampires. And who are vampires at an academy who are, well, Rose is a Dampire, Damper, or Dampier, depending on how you pronounce it, and she is in training to become a guardian for a Moroi, and the Moroi are the royal vampires. The Dampiers and the Moroi are the good vampires. Excuse me. So what I mean by that is they don't go out of their way to harm humans. They live a very peaceful, nice, good existence, while there is an evil lot of vampires within this Vampire Academy universe, and they are the Strigoi. This book was a good read. However, for me, the first half of the book was rather meandering, and that did reflect the rating that I ended up giving it. As with Vampire Academy Volume 1, Vampire Academy, I also gave Vampire Academy Volume 2, Frostbite, 3 stars, because the first half of the book was so very meandering. There is a new dark and brooding character that's introduced into this book, and his name is Adrian Ivashkov. I had a lot of love for that character, but he did not have a lot of airtime. Christian Azera is back in this book, and if you remember my review for the first Vampire Academy book, you'll remember how much I loved him. He had a lot more airtime, and I really appreciated that. But the first half of this book was just a lot of meandering and really like day-to-day stuff. There wasn't a lot going on at all. But the second half of the book more than made up for it and bumped it up from a 1.5 to 2 star to a 3 star rated book, because the ending was really well done. The action sequences were amazing. The climax was wonderful. And there is a moment in this book with a particular character that I really appreciated the writer including in this book. And I talk about all of that in my review for Vampire Academy Frostbite in my playlist. So you can feel free to check that out over there. I did love this book, so please don't think that a 3-star book means that I didn't like it. I did love this book. I just think that the first half of the book and the fact that it was so meandering, really, there was no way I could give this more than 3 stars. I couldn't even give it 3.5. It had to be 3 stars. But it is a good book, and I will give you a bit of a spoiler for my April TBR. Book 3 of Mistborn is on the April TBR, and Book 3 of Vampire Academy is on my TBR as well. I believe it is called Shadow Kissed. Oh my gosh, I'm so going to regret it if I don't pause right now and find out if I'm actually right about that. So just a moment. Okay, so it turns out that I was incredibly close. It's just that the title isn't a past tense, it is a present tense. So rather than being called Shadow Kissed, book 3 in this series is called Shadow Kiss. So I was extremely close, which is pretty awesome. So I will be adding Shadow Kiss to my April TBR, and this received 3 stars, and I will be adding Mistborn's The Hero of Ages to my TBR, both in April, book 3 of both in April. This one received 5 stars, this one received 3 stars. Okay, but we still had time to go, so this became book 9 for me for this month, which is incredible because in February, which was my most books read month so far, I read 7 books, so I was already 2 books ahead with this one. Then this one became book 10, making me 3 books ahead of my most books read month. And then I picked up an 11th book. Now, for those of you who saw my midweek vlog, you would have seen me discussing a book called Vampire Kisses. I did want to read this book because it didn't have a whole lot of pages and there's not a lot of time left till the end of the month. However, I should have gone on Goodreads first before I actually made that point that I'm going to read Vampire Kisses. Vampire Kisses is the first book in a series, but according to Goodreads, they don't have the version of the book that I was going to be reading, because the versions that they have of Vampire Kisses is 3 books in one. And what that would mean is that I would need to read Vampire Kisses plus book 2 plus book 3 to be counted as one book. Now, I don't mind doing this in general, but I just don't have the time to do that with 3 days left until the month is over. So I decided to cancel that option. I have not DNF'd that book. I didn't even start the book. It's more of a DNS rather than a DNF. So I've just shelved that book, and I will pick it up at a future point. My April TBR is full, so it will not be on my April TBR, but I will certainly pick it up at a future point. However, the same friend that encouraged me to buy that book, and I have the first 3 books of that series also encouraged me to buy this one. So I didn't feel guilty. I just traded out that series that she recommended to begin another one that she recommended for me. And that is this book. It is a book called Evermore. Sorry. And it is by Alison Noel. And you guys, I'm loving this book. So this book is what would we call this? A YA paranormal romance, I believe. I didn't write it down, but I think if I'm recalling it correctly, it's a YA paranormal romance. And in this book, we are following the protagonist, who is on the cover there, and her name is Eva. And what makes Eva really interesting compared to any other books that I've read at all this year is that Eva is actually a psychic, which I find really fascinating. So she reads people's auras, and if she touches people or objects, she knows things that she oughtn't to know, ought not to know, I should say, because they haven't told her. She just does. And she hasn't told anyone because they'll call her a freak, or more of a freak than she already is. And so... And this is not a spoiler, because there is so much that's going on in this book right now that this is just the beginning of the book. This is like page 1. And that just fascinated me from the moment I started reading this, the fact that she is psychic, but she hasn't told anyone. And so she's very reluctant and hesitant to use her gift, as it's referred to in this book. So she doesn't want to touch people. She doesn't want to touch objects because she doesn't want to know. So she's going to a normal human school. So to use my olden day terms that I used in January and February, this is a fantasy book that is high on human landia aspects, but I forgive that because this is the first time I'm reading a psychic book about a psychic who no one knows she is one, and she doesn't really want to be one, and it's just been really, really fascinating. It is a paranormal romance, and so it's not a spoiler to say that there is someone who shows up at the school that's tall, dark, and handsome, and that she has a crush on. And so there's that side as well, and there are interesting things about that character also. But this book is amazing. I picked it up yesterday thinking I would just read a little bit of it, and the next thing I know, I had flown through so many chapters because it's such an easy read, but it's also such a compelling plot. Now, this is the first book in the Immortals series. It says it there. And I will give you a spoiler once again. Book 2 of the Immortals series has already been placed onto my April TBR. So you'll see that one tomorrow as well. So even though this is book 1 in a series, I could just read this as a standalone, but from what I've read so far, I need to read book 2, even though I haven't finished this book. It's just so extremely compelling, and I want to say a big, massive shout out and thank you to the person who recommended this series to me, because they were bang on with the kind of books that I love. This is amazing. It is YA, and so is this, yet this is so much more compelling than this, yet this seems to me to be more backlisted than this one. And what I mean is, this book doesn't seem to be popular. I don't know how it was advertised, but I've never heard of this series before. You may have, and you may correct me and say, well, Mr. Francy, you were just living under a rock for the last 2 years, so of course you don't know about it. But for me, I've really heard next to nothing about this series at all, where Vampire Academy, I don't know anyone who's into vampires who hasn't heard of this series. But I just find this book so compelling, and so Alison Noel, who is the author of this book, massive shout out to you, because yeah, you're an author that I love. So yeah, definitely going to be putting book 2 onto my April TBR. So what am I going to do between now and the end of the month? I'm basically going to finish this book. I have 2 days left to finish this book, and I will be able to do that. I'm basically 2/3 of the way through the book, so I'll be done probably by tomorrow with this one, which will make my 11th book that I've read this month. So woo, bring on my monthly wrap. I hope we have enough time to get through all the books. And yeah, but that is everything that I have read for the end of this week. Mistborn, The Well of Ascension, 5 stars. Vampire Academy, Mistborn, The Well of Ascension, second book in the Mistborn series, 5 stars. Vampire Academy Frostbite, the second volume in the Vampire Academy series, and Evermore by Alison Noel, the first book in the Immortal series, yet to be rated. This is 3 stars, I don't know if I said that. This is yet to be rated, and I'll finish this off and conclude the month with that one, with my 11th book. Alright, so that's where I am going to leave it. Tomorrow I will be putting up my April TBR, so I know you guys have been waiting for a while to see it, and there are reasons with that I will get into in tomorrow's video, because some of you have been voting in a poll for some of the books that I'm going to read, so I will reveal all of that for you tomorrow in my well-prepared, today I've spent most of the day preparing for it, well-prepared April TBR, and then on Tuesday I will be doing my monthly wrap-up, and then boom, we will be in April. So it's been an amazing month for me, but I look forward to seeing you tomorrow for my April TBR, Tuesday for my monthly wrap-up. Until then, thank you so much for watching. Peace, blessings, and so much love. Please stay safe during this corona pandemic. I think one of the best things you can do, and I'm not biased at all, is to pick up some books and start reading. I'm certainly taking advantage of it, and I think you should too. But whatever it is that you're doing, I hope you're staying safe and continuing to spread the love. Love, cooperation, respect, all those sorts of things. They're really going to help us get through this pandemic. But let's wrap this up here. Thank you again for watching, and happy reading, and I'll see you tomorrow for my April TBR. Bye guys, happy reading, bye.